Welcome back to the Level Up and Live podcast. I'm your host, Sean Meyers, and today we're spotlighting a leader who's building her life with intention, not burnout. Sarah Kouba has spent 2 decades leading people, rebuilding communities, and fighting for what matters most, her faith, her girls, and her health. Today, we're pulling back the layers on her journey, the battles she's overcome, and who she's becoming as a 10.0 leader. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Sean. Wow. It's a nice intro.
Absolutely. Now, for someone meeting you for the first time, like I did about 5 weeks ago, who is Sarah today as a leader, a mom, and a woman of faith?
Okay, wow. I'm still navigating that. I don't think I can give you just a clear answer. I mean, my oldest daughter will be 21 in December. So who am I as a mother? I'm really navigating that right now because I've entered this new path. She's in college and has her own apartment, and I still have my 15-year-old daughter. You know, we're trying to figure out life without her sister living at home. And so we're in this new transition, and it's actually really fun. Every season has been fun. I don't think I've ever been the mom who's just like, I want this season to be gone. It's always been something I've grieved. Even when I remember the last time I walked down the diaper aisle and went, you don't have to walk down this aisle. Like you don't have anyone in diapers anymore. And it was just like, it hit every time. So who I am as a mom, I'm always figuring that out, navigating and trying to become a better version of myself for them and figuring out what they need in this season of their lives, which this is an interesting one when your kids get older. Who I am in my faith, also an ever evolving journey. I got saved when I was 26 years old. And so, I'm roughly still a late teenager and all of that and trying to figure out who God wants me to be and what that means and what that looks like. I know he's given me a lot of talent and skills. No, but I mean, he has, and how I use that is always something I'm kind of walking through. And, I've been in the nonprofit space and the charity space, and it was so fruitful, heart on the heart a lot. But I was good at that. Financially, I had to make some moves. So I ended up in a space where I was healing I felt like I was attempting to heal a lot of corporate energy, and, private equity can be very cutthroat, but I really didn't feel moved to remain in that space. So I kind of really put that out for God at that time and ended up in the water industry, which is also very impactful, very different. So no two the same. And I'm not a person you can ask, where do you want to be in 5 years? I just have no idea what God's going to do in the next 5 years. So as a mom, ever growing, as a Christian, constantly a student, and trying to be as kind as possible and to not get lost in any kind of eliteness in any way. I've never plateaued. I've never learned enough to where I know so much more than someone else. It's love the least of these is always the way that my heart follows that path. But as a leader, man, I think I'm just in elementary school. You think you're somewhere and then you realize you get knocked off a pedestal really quickly. Leadership and working with other adults who you have this responsibility to, make sure they have the resources that they need, but also you have expectations that have to be met, and loving people where they're at, and all of these facets. And you can't lead 2 people the same way. You have to really, learn every single person that you work with and how they respond, how you communicate with them. I can be aggressive and abrasive sometimes, especially if I'm in a hurry and I need to get things done. I was raised in a house full of boys and men. So that's how we speak to each other. Some people in my leadership arena appreciate that, and they respond. They speak to me just the same way, and we're good there, and they like that. And some get the shakes, and I go, oh my gosh, I have to check myself and go, I'm not mad. I have to lower my voice and be soft. So I have to do the same thing with my daughters. But yeah, I know that was a long answer to a question, but that was a pretty deep question.
It's beautiful. And what I'm hearing you say is that we all go through these different seasons of life. And I know a lot of our leaders and business owners that are listening to this as well. One of the things I wasn't really clear on is when I was going through the season of life of building my first company, which was the insurance company in 2015, that was it. And I sacrificed and I neglected all these other areas of life, spirituality, health, and relationships. And that was my marriage. That was my friendships. That was my health. I was 30 pounds overweight. And then, but I did really good in business. So that was the season of life that I was in right now. And now fast forward, God had different plans for me, right? He's smiling and above. He's like, all right, I'm going to allow you to do this as long as you can. Then you're going to have to go through the pain cave. And I had to go through the suffering. And he made me, and it made me realize I hired my first coach. He slowed me down. And that's when I started that next season of life for me, which was that spiritual leadership, that spiritual transformational journey. And that's what I've been on these last 4 years. And it's been ups and downs and challenges and adversities. And because normally, like you said, if somebody talks to me one way, normally I'm responding in bulldozer and I'll match your tone. But now that's not how a Christian business leader shows up. So I'm having to practice that empathy and that compassion, but still authoritative figure. So it's been a big challenge for me because I'm not used to that. So that's the season of life that I'm in right now. Now I'm curious with you, what season of life would you be in are you in right now in the area of life? And what's that growth or the calling you feel most stretched in right now currently?
Man, that's a great question because I think in general, the work-life balance is something I'm constantly trying to work through. I've been a single mom for a long time, so carrying the weight of the household on top of stewarding two young females, and making sure I have the time and energy and space for them, while also finding some sort of caretake for myself in there, because you can't pour from an empty cup. So trying to navigate all of that, and then the pressures of my position and my leadership and the community and what that requires of me, and trying to find that balance. So where I am in this season, if you forced me to layer it down on paper, which it should always be, but my home life is definitely at the top of that list. I'm recognizing that the more I caretake who I am at home and protect that, the better I am in all other facets and arenas. So it's like the closer I am to God in my time at home and in my mornings and in my discipline and my self-control and in all of the fruits, in my kindness, in my generosity, all of these things, the closer I get to God. And it happens for me in the home space because that's where I have to set it all down and take the walk outside with the dog, even though my head's still spinning and I've got some pressing things I need to do. And, finding these paths to create that space of rest and, reminding myself that I don't want to associate stillness with laziness ever. It's okay to be still. So I think I'm really caretaking that part of myself right now because I'm recognizing how much I might have let that go in the last 5 years. We'll just say the last 5. Because those are tough years. Anybody who's got a kid in high school or 2 kids in high school at the same time, or that's busy season. I mean, you're a limo. I mean, you're transporting, you're cashing out constantly. You're pulled in different directions. Okay, now I have to have this outfit for tomorrow and this outfit for Wednesday. And can you help me with this bit of homework that you don't understand at all? Can you all of these things at once? And then if you top that with, hey, the plumbing has gone out, or there's this issue with an air conditioning, or there's been times where I'm just like, cash me in. Like, I don't think I'm cut for this. And then I stop feeling sorry for myself and I get up and say how grateful I am and really try to realign with my perspective. And that's going to help me. But
Wow.
I think I've answered that question of where I am in this season. I mean, I'm riding the wave always.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. And I would encourage our listeners and audience to go back and rewind that for 60 seconds because that was absolutely brilliant in what you just shared. And one of the things that I pulled out from that, Sarah, was when you're going through chaos and when you're going through the peaks and the valleys and the trials and the tribulations that we all go through as human beings, especially you running a team and then you're, being a mom and all these different things that happen in our lives. The thing that I pulled out when I heard you say that was gratitude. Mm-hmm. What can you be grateful for in this moment? And that has been one of the biggest concepts and fundamentals that I have learned being an entrepreneur and leader is when I go through friction. It's not if, but when we go through these frictions because we're stretching ourselves as leaders. Mm. We're stretching ourselves. So we're consistently, just like you go to the gym and you run and you walk. If you're going to stretch yourself, if you're going to improve your mind, body, and soul, you're going to get stretched. You're going to have to go through the pain cave. And if you can be at peace and if you can give gratitude in those moments, that's how you end up getting to where you want to go versus the person that burns out and throws in the towel. And that's what I'm hearing you say. And I encourage and I empower our listeners and audience that they can do the same thing and what they're going through. And what you shared, your story with your girls and leading a team, that is all relatable. And because one of the things that I've heard from a mentor recently that really kind of stuck to my heart was whatever you're going through right now, and the more you continue to stretch yourself, that next time that you get slapped with something that just knocks you on your rear end, in that moment, what are you grateful for? And that is, you're like, well, what am I grateful for, Sean? Seriously, I just got slapped with a lawsuit, or I just got slapped with, a disease from the hospital. The mentor told me in that moment, you put the meaning to it. What is the meaning to it in that moment? Well, I'm grateful for this. Because there's always going to be somebody worse off than you are in that moment. So there's always something to be grateful for, and put that meaning to it.
Well, I think that especially with, the work that I did, the core of my career with disaster resilience and repair, and we worked with 80% AMI and below. That means essentially some of the poorest in our communities, deep Fifth Ward Houston, Setagas Houston. I think a lot of the families that I was able to meet and work with really helped put a lot of things in perspective for me, and some of my own experiences in life too. And I like to go into that space when I get into some sort of pity party with myself, or I start to feel a certain way, to remind myself, you've had way harder days. You've had way harder seasons. And, let's be grateful that we're challenged by a life we created on purpose. Let's be grateful. What a privilege it is to be tired. These things. And I really feel for the folks, like you said, that they get a health diagnosis or something like that. That's really the top of the chart. If you don't have a health diagnosis, go sit down. You're all right. I think those are the families or their children, something along those lines. So I remind myself constantly when something gets a little tough on me, I'm like, your babies are healthy. Sit down. This is fine. Look around, look at all the nice things you have. Look at this big, beautiful brain God gave you, and you're able to go make money that you need to make, or this is fine. This isn't that deep, and try to, give myself that space. But interestingly enough, that's what Level Up has pulled out of me, is they're like, what's the low? Because I've spent, especially as a person who's had to hustle for so long, I don't have the luxury to really sit in the low for very long, or to assess the low, and to maybe carve into it and see if there's something I can do to help myself. So it's not just a mind frame. Instead, I'm, exercising a better practice. That's been an interesting thing for me, is expressing the lows and going, okay, I can say it out loud. I had a low this week. What was that? Interesting. I didn't address it. I didn't think about it because I'm so versed in the practice of jump past it. Don't give yourself the space to assess the lows. So there's a line there. It's a balance.
Yeah, man, I resonate so much with that. And I know a lot of our listeners and audience are resonating that as well, especially, for men. One of the things that I have learned, and it's taken me so many years, 38 plus years to learn this, is I really never tapped into my feelings, my emotions, my thoughts, and why I was showing up hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Why was I showing up? Why was I didn't know these feelings, and I wasn't self-aware of it. And it's interesting to hear you say it. And I never heard somebody say it in that perspective. I always knew like high lows and gratitudes, and you kind of surface level go over it. But then what I'm hearing you say is, well, if I sit with sharing my low and I sit in that for a second, what was a low for this week?
Yeah.
Well, I actually was on social media and I saw one of my good friends that he's diagnosed with a disease 6 months ago, and he's losing, 15 pounds every 2 months. That makes me sad. Whereas normally in the past, I would have just scrolled past.
Wow.
And now I'm learning, like you are, to sit with that. And I think that's going to make us better leaders. And I would hope, our individuals listening to this as well is being self-aware enough to know, like, what are some lows this week? Well, I don't have any lows. Well, then you're not diving deep enough.
Right.
Isn't that interesting? And that's what I've learned at Level Up and Live. And I'm curious with you, since you're on Level Up and Live, what made you say, like, hey, it's time for Sarah Kouba to invest in my leadership and in my life? Like, since we're on that topic and you're going through that, what made you say, hey, I need to slow down so I can go fast. It's time to invest in my leadership, fuel my tank and in your life.
Well, I think I'm always in general reaching to learn more, to, I've been a student for as long as I can remember, even whenever I was young, even before I met the Lord yet. I was always reading philosophy. I was just always searching and hunting. And I love the expanding of my mind. And so this was an interesting time for me. Forgive me, my allergies are out of control. I bet we're all dealing with that right now. But for me, I had really put out some prayers to the Lord on what I wanted to see for myself in who I surround myself with. And so this was early September. I've talked to the group about this, but I had put that out there. And the way it looked in my mind was very different than Level Up. Really was generally female in my mind. Like, I'm going to get more Christian friends, which I've got some great friends. I'm not knocking the amazing women in my life, but I wanted more, and I wanted them more local, and women that were hunting to be better wives, Christians, friendships, just more like-minded, more like me. And so I put in the work. I started going to more of, I didn't join any Bible studies. I found myself at my church, the Bible studies are in the middle of the workday. So it's like, this has been something I've dealt with for really, I feel like the last decade. Is I never really could find a place where I felt like I fit, especially being a single woman that's older. That's a little strange spot at this age group. And, so I was trying to navigate that. And then didn't even realize I subconsciously had been witnessing through one of the other members' Facebook, and I didn't really look that deep into it. It was more just, I would see a photograph here and there and it looked like it was getting bigger. And something that I know that God has really rested in my heart is you watch the fruit, you follow the fruit. And so I thought, that's gaining traction and it's gaining fruit. I'm just curious about it. And when I first looked at Level Up and Live, I thought, well, this is clearly entrepreneurs only. That's who they're tailored to. And if you don't own your own business, then you're not going to be welcome there, even though I feel like what I'm seeing in some of this stuff, I relate to. And so I just reached out to that member. Is this something that I would fit into? Do you think that, I would be welcome in this arena? Immediately, he was like, yeah, come. Which, I mean, every one of the videos and every one of the social media posts is like, come, just try it out. So, I mean, the invite kind of came naturally without his, interference in that. But I wasn't sure originally. And I think, especially coming in and, there's some transitions. You've got people that are investing and then leaving or whatever. So it looked to me like there had been more females. So whenever I showed up, there wasn't as many women. And I thought, well, surely this isn't, I did my thing. God, I showed up. You told me to start stepping out into things that I feel uncomfortable. I'm here, on to the next. Except we sat at the table. We discussed our highs and lows and our gratitude, very simple framework. And I was shocked at, just kind of like we had just discussed, me having to assess it. I hadn't really taken the time to look into myself at that moment. What this week was a success for me and made me better? What this week was the opposite of that, and that I'm, maybe had to battle with? And because I'm so isolated a lot as a leader and as a head of my household, and, even in my girl groups, my friendships, it's, a lot of times I'm pouring out. It comes very naturally to me to lead. And so suddenly I'm sitting in a room where we all have that same emotion. And I felt, honestly, this is unique. I'm going to jump a little bit, because I think what this has done for me and what made me want to invest personally, and this may be very unique to me, is, to sit in a room full of men, mostly men, that are trying to be better Christians, trying to be better husbands, trying to be better fathers, trying to be better leaders, has been incredibly healing for me. And I did not expect that. It has been evidence for me that there is hope. And I did not, I really left very full. I've left each of these sessions, these tables, these meet and greets, I've left a lot more full than when I walked in. And that's fruit. And that's our prayer at the beginning, our prayer at the end. I believe God has his hand on this group. I don't know what his intentions are or how he wants to move it, because he's using something very simple. And then I'm watching myself get better. So, in just a few short weeks, I don't have to battle that. If something's working for me, I'll jump on it. And in this case, it's, again, this may be unique to me, but I feel like being around so many masculine people that are healthy and trying really hard to be healthy and are intentional about that, has let me kind of step down a little and tap back more into my feminine. And that little things they're not even asking me to answer for. Like I'm putting out the low or the high or what my accountability is. And then I'm really holding myself to it. But just knowing that I'm going to sit back in that group the next week and they're going to go, how did you do with that accountability? It's charging me up because I'm a girl who gets her homework done. I rise to the occasion. I don't say I'm going to do something and then not do it. But, I haven't always been the best about keeping promises to myself. Gym, food, choices, self-discipline. When you put that out there and you've got a group that's going to sit and look at you the next Friday and go, how'd you do this week? Suddenly you start leveling up. And that's what I've noticed, even in my eating habits. I had something I've wanted to do for months and couldn't do for myself somehow was I wanted to go, and I don't have a definitive line on this one. And I know it's not forever sustainable, but I wanted to cook every meal at home, lunch, dinner, breakfast. I wanted every meal to be at home. And with my schedule, it's somewhat impossible sometimes. I'll be at board meetings till late. I don't get home till 9 p.m. on certain nights, or I'm trying to make this work. And I've got my daughter that's still there. And I'm not used to not saying daughters. So I'm trying to get more comfortable saying daughter that lives at home. I've done that. I did that for 2 weeks solid and came in that Friday and was like, I made it 2 weeks. Like I didn't so much as buy a Starbucks coffee. I'm so proud of myself. But what I loved about this is they gave me the accolade for that and then said, well, that's not sustainable. What is your end goal? Like, when are you going to take a break for yourself? And they helped chip away at that for me. I don't have those conversations with anyone. This is something I would just work on all on my own. And I wasn't successful at it, just doing it by myself, because I'll break my own rules. I'm like, no one tells me what to do, not even me, but
Yep.
Just kidding. So for me, I think that was, again, the long answer to say this has been fruitful for me. And so you get something when you invest. If you're not investing, you're really not sacrificing much of yourself. So I think I understand that part of the business side of the framework. And that goes for a lot of things. That's God's plan for us too. It's like, we love going to church and we love taking as much as we do, but how serious are we about the tithing? And is it about, well, your brain will start working on that. Well, where's it going? And you start asking all these questions. God never asked us to do any of that, even if it's not being used properly. I mean, I think we should steward our money well and pay attention. You should know what church you're in. But the whole thing is letting that go, giving away that piece of yourself, because that's an investment, and letting God reshape what's important to you. If you're struggling on that tithe piece, that says a lot about your faith and something that you need to chip into. And I'm not casting stones. I struggle from time to time with this. But similarly, this group, I'm comfortable with the investment because I know how much I'm getting.
That's beautiful. And one of the few things that I had pulled away from that is when we go through these different seasons of life, a lot of times we isolate ourselves and we stick to what our habits are, what our rhythms are, and what we know. We don't have somebody holding us to higher standards and accountability. And what I heard you say is that you prayed about it. You meditated on it. God, guide me, lead me in the direction. And one thing happened after another. It didn't happen overnight. It took several days, several weeks, maybe even a couple months for you to go subconsciously, the Holy Spirit starting to work through you and going, hey, maybe you should reach out to this guy and just get curious about it. That's where it all starts. And then once you got curious, one thing led to another. You're like, you know what? Let me show up. Let me be bold. Let me be courageous, God. Let me be obedient. Let me surrender. And one thing led to another. And then here you are. You go through this 1 month free trial. And then simple low highs and gratitude. And you're like, whoa, I haven't done this in a while. So, with other like-minded individuals that are sitting around the same table. And then you go through that. And then you're like, well, I'm going to do this. And now you're speaking it to other individuals that are holding you accountable. Well, I don't need to be held accountable. That's literally, I remember saying that 4 years ago to one of my closest friends. I was like, accountability? I don't need to be held accountable. Like, as ashamed as I am to say that, Sarah, I remember saying that to this other individual. And I still reflect on that 4 years later. I'm like, I cannot believe I said that.
We get trapped. We get trapped, especially 100%. Movers. Yeah.
That was me. I was trapped. It was small-minded. It was not wise. I mean, the list goes on. And now I'm like, no, accountability in all these other areas of life. We need people speaking into us and holding ourselves to
and
these
the right people,
especially
the right people.
The right people.
That's an important bit.
Yes. So I love that you share that. And I think that hit so deep. And I know it did with our listeners as well, because it's very relatable. Now I'm curious, what would you say to that leader listening right now who feels stretched, who feels like they're just overwhelmed? That mom that has the kids, running the business, leading the business, going through the ups and the downs and the trials and the tribulations. She just feels stretched and overwhelmed, but knows she or he is meant for more. What would you say to that leader?
I feel like I don't know that I would say the same thing to the female, the mom, as I would say to a colleague. Maybe a little bit different, but I think you've got to, this is going to sound kind of cliche, but everything you do, you've got to do it as though you're doing it for the Lord, and to really keep that space and to remember you don't have to achieve everything tomorrow. The more self-regulated that I've become, the more that I realize that communicating every emotion isn't an emergency. Sometimes you can sit with it. Sometimes you can wrestle with it. Don't practice absolutism. Like, this happened, I've got to make this decision, and we've got to make this change today. Take some time, be still, really wrestle with the why you're doing what you're doing, what that looks like, and what is the long goal here? What's the long game? What am I trying to achieve? And a lot of leaders, we can be very strong, we can be stubborn. We have a lot of these qualities they're good and bad. It just depends how you utilize them. I was told once by a mentor years ago, and it really resonated with me, and I think about it often, was told, and I know many of us do, especially God's put us in leadership positions, but, I carry a bucket of water and I carry a gasoline tank, and I have the ability to set someone on fire with my words and discourage them. I can absolutely annihilate and kill with that. But I also have the bucket of water where I can encourage, I can give life. I carry them both. So who do I want to give those to? Am I doing God's work or what else? Anything else I don't want any part of. And so you've got to bridle yourself a bit. Take that time, take the hit sometimes. Just because I can pour the gasoline doesn't mean I should.
Yes.
And so I would say, be still. For the women, romanticize everything. I've been putting on that apron at night to make these 2 weeks work with the food at home. I mean, I've been lighting the candles, turning the music on. This is a labor of love. And I've come home where my battery's empty and I don't have the space for this. But I want to show my daughters, I want to show my family what it looks like to, not let this all be labor. It's the hard things at the office, the challenges at work. It's, hey, this is a labor of love. I'm grateful. I chose this life. The kid that's emotional at home, and the mess that you didn't think you were going to have to clean up and all that. What a gift. Like, just really reframe your mind in those spaces, and then give yourself some time to be still also and check in with yourself.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. For a minute there, you were talking to me. I'm like listening. I'm getting chills on my skin. Well said. And I agree with you 1000%. Sarah, I just want to commend you for your courage and for you continuing to show up, lean in, and really show out. You're the type of individual that's very rare out there. When we spoke before the podcast and when we spoke yesterday on the phone, the more and more I get to know you and the more that I get to build this relationship with you and get to learn about your character and just who Sarah is, it's the more and more the more and more it inspires me. It sharpens me and it makes me want to be a better person as well. So I appreciate you, and I just want to acknowledge you for your courage and your boldness and how you are showing up and leading from the front and by example. So thank you for being you and being on the podcast today.
Sean. I feel the same. I truly do. I see what you've put together here, and I know the why behind it is very genuine, and you're very intentional. I can tell you've got that challenger personality, and I know you are holding some of that back, and you're working really hard on that. And that's a beautiful thing to see too. It is. This is a great group, and this is your service work and your impact. And it spreads a lot of seeds. This is going to go a long way. The ripple in the water is a big deal. So congratulations to you. I know you're a busy man, a husband. You've got your work life, and you still make intentional time for all of us. And that's very, very beautiful thing.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. It's individuals like you, iron sharpens iron. You helping permission, safe place, holding me accountable, sharing your perspective, and the Holy Spirit really working through all of us, showing up with humility, kindness, and love, because I feel like we're just getting warmed up. And if we can continue to do that and run in unity together, man, you really become an unstoppable force and a great team in the things that we're trying to do. So thank you for speaking into me like that. One of my love languages is words of affirmation. So you really made my day this morning.
Good to know. Now I know.
So outside of that, how can our Level Up and Live community, how can we support you? You've been nothing but valuable today for our community. Sarah, how can we support you?
I appreciate the show up. I miss some of the guys when they're not there. And, there are boundaries, I think, with adults and men and women. So I'm not texting to be like, hey, where are you? What's going on here? I'm not going to do that, but I think it and I feel it and I want to know how you're doing. So I would say, if you're a part of this group and show up, let's see each other. Let's meet each other there. I know it's just, I say this sometimes on a Sunday whenever I'm battling and I don't want to go to church. I cannot do that this morning. I don't want to go and I'm not going to go. When I get up and I go, that's whenever I gain the most.
Yes.
And so I would just challenge those in this group to show up. And that's where we're going to find the fruit is in there together. And we know you don't feel good about it when you don't show up. So just don't do that to yourself. But, I think we keep striving to be better. We keep remembering that God's in front of this thing. We're not really leading our businesses. We're not really doing all of that. We're just we're a tool to make all of these things happen and not put so much pressure on ourselves and just keep showing up and being transparent and vulnerable.
Love that. Well, there you go. If Sarah's story spoke to you today and really connected with our leaders and business owners, connect with her. She's definitely a leader worth following. And if you're ready to level up your own leadership, health, and life, join us to Level Up and Live. Like Sarah said, take that one step today, that one action step. Doesn't have to be 5, just one action step and do the hard thing. Become self-aware, stare at the person in the mirror, and live with intention. We'll see you on the next episode. Thanks again, Sarah.
Thanks so much, Sean.